All right, everybody, the music says it's time to start the show. My name is Rex Perry. I'm the host and creator of the show. And if you just turn on your radio, we talk business, politics, and economics. It's called the Business to Business Radio Show. And here in Maricopa County, we've got a fantastic university called Arizona State University. And we got a couple of really sharp people that are coming from the university. Jack, give us your last name. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jack Hinrichs. I'm a ASU student, go Devils, and a proud vice president of the Politics and Leadership Club.
Fear the fork.
Absolutely.
Audra?
Hi, I'm Audra Ward, and I'm also a student of Arizona State University. I am a member of this club of Politics and Leadership.
And again, you meet when? Where?
We meet Mondays at 4:30 on the ASU Tempe campus. We're in the Social Sciences building. Just look it up into Google. We'll take you right there. And we've got free food. We'd love to have you come down.
And you're going to need a bigger room because last time I was there, we were pretty packed in there.
Yeah, we've been getting 50 to 70 people coming to every meeting, which we're just delighted by that number. We never in a million years thought we'd have that kind of turnout, and we're having it, and we just love it.
And again, you participate. How'd you hear about it first?
I heard about it through the president, actually, and I met him, and he said that I should come. And I tell my friends all the time that they should come. I advertise it to everyone. I think it's a great environment to share your opinions and to learn, honestly.
And get involved. Let's talk a little bit about the digital voting system that's being developed where you'll have a smartphone app, voatz.com, votes.com, voatz.com. Check that out. They do a facial recognition. They get a driver's license or a passport, photo ID. They do a cross-check with the voter registration. Again, everybody do not freak out. This is public record. A lot of people don't know that. The voting records are public, so everybody take a deep breath so they'll be able to figure out where you live, if you're registered to vote, and in District 1, Arizona, so the congressional representative would like to hear from you, and this is an opportunity for straw polling and different things. Let's talk about using a digital system to do a straw poll on an issue. And let's just pick guns for a second. And these are the hot topics. So we are all living through multiple school shootings. In fact, do you guys even remember Columbine?
No, Columbine, I can't remember the year in Columbine happened, but I think it was, yeah, so that was at least 5 years before I was born.
Yeah, and it's been going on. Audra, any of the shootings that spring to your mind, I mean, as you've grown up?
I mean, I know that there was the one in Florida, correct? Like the Florida one really sticks out to me, but there's been too many to count, which is really sad to say. Yeah. And
a lot of them have to do with high-powered rifles.
Yeah.
And the proliferation of guns. I mean, we talk about the high-powered school shootings, but in places like Chicago, by the way, I think it's getting better. I have a son that lives in Chicago, and they're trying to do some sort of neighborhood buyback. Your thoughts on having universal background checks? Your thoughts on that?
I think universal background checks are a great idea. Well, I come from a family of gun owners. I come from 5 generations of gun owners. But the notion that you have a gun and the purpose of your gun is so nefarious or ought to be so underground that you're scared the government knows about it. You're scared of what the government would do if they knew why you had a gun. Strikes to me that maybe you shouldn't have a gun in that case. And so my thought is, well, gun ownership, while hunting, these are things that are very important to many Americans, including many members of my family. We ought to know who has guns.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as an American, my family is also gun owners, and so I've kind of grown up about it. But at the same time, I think that the background checks would be really useful to eliminating a lot of these school shootings, because I feel like the school shootings, at least that I've read on, a lot of them come from more younger teens almost, and I think that kind of can be eliminated if we have this more background and universal check to see why they have these guns, especially at such a young age. I mean, obviously there are things that they could be doing, but it's great to have that check.
And again, via legislation, we could actually promote gun ownership. Mm-hmm. But you need to have training, licensing, just like you get a license to drive a car, and promote this, and promote gun safety, and promote keeping the gun locked up and safe. Mm-hmm. have some sort of standards, and people hate the concept of regulation. But guess what? The reason we have these regulations, we're trying to save lives. So any thoughts on writing some sort of legislation as far as how far would you go and try to have some sort of registration or protection, or any ideas on what you would have?
Well, for starters, I think it's a fantastic idea to have a gun training class and to have a gun licensing class. I think it's a bit silly that we have all of these regulations about who can drive a car and what you've got to do to drive a car and the documents that you've got to have to drive a car, but we're so laissez-faire about who can own guns and how they can acquire those guns, because both guns and cars are dangerous things if they are used improperly, if they are used with neglect. And it's a similar thing with storing guns. You know, I come from a family of gun owners, and so one thing that's very important to my family is a culture of gun safety, is a culture of gun locks, is a culture of gun safes, because guns are a responsibility. And just like any responsibility, you have to take that seriously. You have to do right by the responsibility that you have by owning that gun. And so having regulations about how you store your gun, having regulations to ensure that folks can't get into it if they're not supposed to get into it, is absolutely something that ought to be implemented in this country.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Jack completely, but I also just like to bring up the history of the Second Amendment and how maybe that could conflict with some people's ideas. I think that although we have shifted from a different time, sometimes that there are people that want to have guns because they think that they need it in defense of the government.
Protection.
Yes, exactly, protection. And I think that there are limits to that, because you asked about the limits, and I think that there are some people who may have valid reasons to want to have guns for protection.
Sure.
And that's kind of the way that my family had it growing up. I was only taught how to use a gun and how it worked in case for protection. I don't think that it should be used for violence. Obviously, I don't think, and that's why I think the background checks would be great to have. And yeah, I think I agree, but I just would like to bring up that perspective almost.
Yeah, and I'll give you a prime example. Very close friend, female, loves to go hiking in the Superstitions all by herself, had to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be honest. She's petite. She is at very remote locations. She went to classes, got well trained, knows what she's doing, knows where to store it, knows how to protect herself. That's important.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is important.
And to that point, going to classes is important not just from the safety element. Firing a gun is not an easy thing to do.
No, you got to know what you're doing.
You've got to know what you're doing. You can't just pick up a gun and be Rambo or be John McClane from Die Hard.
Hit yourself in the head
You're
when
gonna
it
hit you.
recoils.
Right, yeah.
Firing a gun is a difficult thing to do. So it's not just for the safety of others. It is for your own safety to
Right,
ensure you know how to operate this gun, just as it's for your own safety that you take, that you go to car school, then you learn how to drive, because otherwise you don't know how to operate a motor vehicle. You've got to operate a gun.
Right.
I'm going to put you a question here. High-powered rifles, AR-15s, you know, is that a different category than a handgun for protection? Your thoughts?
I think that is a different category, but at the same time, I think that if it is for use against, for say, government, if that ever happens, I would say that you would have to use something more big than a handgun. But at the same time, I don't think that there's any reasonable reason
why the government would ever really come after us, really?
That's what I'm saying. I hope not.
No.
But I'm just thinking about the history of the Second Amendment for why this even exists in the first place and why it's such a big argument.
Let's talk about the history, because it says a well-regulated militia is actually the term that's used.
Yeah.
So,
That's true.
so we're talking, and think back in the 1700s, 1800s, when there was an attack by Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
You had to grab your gun from above the fireplace and go out and fight together, and that's how the Minutemen became. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with having these big guns in your house, but I think that a lot of people use this as justification for why they think they can have one.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the difference that I'm trying to point out, is that times have definitely changed, in that I don't think that there's any good reason for someone to have these big guns in their house except for insinuating violence, it seems like. And so I agree. I think I understand what you're saying, is also in the 1700s, things were way different, and they didn't have this organized military and this funding that we have now. And so now we have people that are trained to protect us and all these things, and so hopefully you don't have to have these larger guns. And but that I really like Jack's point of how, like, guns are not something that you can just pick up and shoot. Like, it really doesn't work like that. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I need to protect myself. Like, I need to buy a gun. It's like, no, it comes up with training, and you need to know how the gun works.
And lock it up.
Yeah, you got to lock it up. Exactly. How you store it. Exactly. And I think that there are so many sad stories like that are terrible of, you know, these parents having these guns in their house, and then the kids find them.
Yeah.
And it's, well, what do you do with that? I think there needs to be more awareness of it instead of there being, you know, I understand the hatred for the guns and having guns, but at the same time, right now it's kind of unavoidable. And so I think that there needs to be more on how to protect your household and how to store them and how to learn about them and educate more about how the gun works instead of immediately shutting it down, because I don't see that going anywhere.
Yeah. And just to break up the concept of the government coming after your guns, if there was a gun registration, people say, I don't want to register my gun because I want the government come and taking my gun.
Away. Yeah.
Think about all of the layers of problems that to finally get to that point. Now, people will also often talk about Ruby Ridge, where there was a ATF firearms. I can't remember what all that stands for. ATF stands for, but they were going after this guy, and there was a big mistake that was not handled right, where they actually ended up shooting the wife, and they had snipers. So my point is, these people, I understand their concerns, but ever since that, there's been such a hot button issue on that. So long story made short, we're starting to wrap up here. We've got about 2 minutes here. Again, how can people, if they would like to come and join, and by the way, do they have to be an ASU student?
No, folks don't have to be an ASU student to come. We do ask during the meetings that only ASU students speak, and that folks...
My bad.
No, that's all right. We do ask that you come and you listen, and we're more than happy to chat with you before and after the meeting. But during the meetings, it is supposed to be a town hall of ASU students. But during those meetings, we'd love to have you come and listen, and we have a lot of folks who come in from the community to come and listen. I think that a lot of folks like knowing that young folks are interested in politics, and that young folks are dedicated and committed and are giving time out of their day to talk about issues. It's a very positive thought to have in your mind with all the doom and gloom you get on cable television. Seeing a commitment to civil discourse in the next generation can be incredibly optimistic, or a driver of optimism for folks, and we're very happy to provide that.
Well, thank you both for coming down here. We've got about 30 seconds for me to say, if you missed anything and would like to get more information, our website is the numbers 123, the letter B like in business, letter Z like in zebra.com, 123bz.com. My email, cell phone number, everything's right there. If you want to get contacts with these guys, we'd love to have you participate. My name is Rex Perry. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back. So much fun, you guys. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.